Greetings, my name is Helene and my matric number is 060389. The part of the study that I will explain is the introduction. Textual analysis is defined as a way of communication in describing and interpreting the text in audio form, book or transcription. The aim of conducting textual analysis is to describe content, structures, and functions in the text. In this study, we shall employ situational dimensional analysis. House 1981 introduces an approach to analyze the text in various contexts. Analyzing translation quality involves comparing source and translated text, analyzing their characteristics and rating how closely they correspond. There are three components of text analysis, which are semantic, pragmatic, and textual. The next part is the background of the book. Robert Kiyosaki is an author of Rich Dad Poor Dad 1997. The book presents different perspectives of wealth from two fathers and what he learned from them. The book offers insights about financial literacy and how to accumulate wealth and be financially independent. The reason for choosing this book is that the story is widely recognized worldwide and the book was established formally from the publisher, which is DTS Professional SDM PhD, for the goal of studying financial education. Furthermore, the story of the book is well structured and presentable to analyze for translation purposes. In addition, the website makes it simple for scholars to get the relevant information. And to analyze English to Malay translation is simple. Thus, the book provides a wonderful opportunity for researchers to analyze Rich Dad Poor Dad's translations.
Despite the evolving nature of technology continuously expanding, translation continues to hold a crucial role in society. So translation is commonly understood as transcribing written or spoken messages from one language to another. Okay, so generally, Vinay and Dalbernett 1995 and Newmark 1988 classified translation techniques into two categories, which are direct and indirect translation techniques. Okay, our in-depth analysis of this task found that the translator used 8 types of techniques adapted from Vinay and Dalbernett's model of translation procedures with 389 times frequency of occurrence. So, and these techniques will be explained in detail by my friends later.
Okay, so literal translation or direct translation is a method where words or phrases are translated as closely as possible to the source text. Okay, so as you can see, here are the example of literal translation, and you can see how they maintain the same word order, the same sentence structure, and also grammatical features as the target language.
The first technique that I use is CAP. Income statement translates to penyata pendapatan. The text is analyzed using semantic features because it can be translated directly. CALC method allows researcher to directly translate source text term but employ target language sentence structure. Both source and target languages have two-word linguistic units. Both pairs of noun phrases have opposite structures. The first version puts income first, whereas the Malay version puts pendapatan last. In English, statement is at the end of the phrases, whereas in Malay, it's at the beginning. Based on the sentence, the SL and TL texts are similar. CALC makes the words fit together, thus the translated words can form sentences. The part of speech in SL and TL are the same, which are noun. Hence, when combined in a sentence, the word stays as a subject or object. Adapting words directly from the native language avoids cultural barriers. Consequently, readers understand the target language terms.
Deletion or omission process is referring to a removal of a certain element, word, phrases, or a whole part of the sentences from the source text. This type of process are used when the translator finds that a certain part from the source text is unnecessary to be included in the translated text. It is because to avoid redundancy or repetitive. Below are example of the deletion process that were being used. These three sentences were picked from the source text and the targeted text that we analyze. On the first sentences, we can see that the translator just translate using the literal method. And on the second sentences, we can see that the translator did not include at all in the targeted text. Because when you see the second sentences, it's referring to some things that, oh, when you say that place, you can feel like, oh, it is cozy hometown. But the translator did not find an equivalence for that word, but he decided to delete the whole sentences as it is irrelevant because in the targeted text, even without the sentences from the source text, which is the second sentences, the whole meaning are still understandable.
Meanwhile, equivalence is a translation technique where it preserves the meaning of idioms or proverbs or expressions by using a target language equivalence. So as you can see, the phrase growing pains is translated into menghadapi cabaran. Instead of translating it directly, the translator instead used menghadapi cabaran to convey the true and intended message by the author.
Okay, so moving on to the next procedure, which is the adaptation technique. Okay, so this technique usually involves modifying and adapting the cultural reference in the source text when the information is translated into the target language. Okay, simply put, it happened due to a source culture that does not exist in the context of the target language. Okay, so from the example provided, the word struggling in the source tag is translated into the target text as berhempas pulas. So the word berhempas pulas here is an adaptation that suits the cultural context of the Malay language, which means putting in a great effort or working hard. Okay, both of the sentences capture the idea of struggling, but when adaptation is applied while translating, it will provide a more active and intense manner of sentences. Next is the reduction technique. So reduction is one of the translation techniques that fall under indirect translation. Okay, so this technique is done by translating the source language to the target language by suppressing the SL information into the TL. So alternatively, when it is identified that the source language or text is providing too much information than is needed to be included in the target language, the reduction translation technique is the most useful to be used. Okay, so from the example shown, it can be identified that the target text is translated by suppressing some of the information included in the source text. Okay, as you can see in the table provided, the bolded phrase "the option" is repeated in the source text, making it unnecessarily important. Thus, it is reduced from the text and is translated only once, making the sentence simpler and not too lengthy.
Expansion. Expansion is when the targeted text took up more spaces than the source text. This is because the expansion adjustments happen when one word from the source text is translated with a several word from the targeted language to find a suitable meaning. This is because expansion is an area under semantic adjustment. Semantic adjustment is preserving the contextual meaning or the meaning from the source tag to the targeted tags. So as an example below, we can see from the words, which is the words that are being underlined, is an additional words. This is because the translator are adding a new information to ensure that the the meaning are being conveyed from the source tag to the targeted tags.
So when analyzing the text, it is found that the work can be considered a good translated work, but at the same time, there is still room for improvement. Okay, looking at the positive sides of the work, it is identified that the translators managed to implement cultural appropriateness during the translation process, as there are parts where the translator considers the Malay culture and applies the adaptation in translating the source text. Okay, this indirectly narrows down the cultural gaps between the English and Malay languages. Okay, however, it is impossible to find the positives in everything. During the analysis, it is noticeable that the target text is not translated accurately, as there are slight mistakes in the transferred information, where the translator transferred the 1990s in the source tag as 1980s in the target text. Also, the translator frequently use a literal translation technique when translating the text, which causes awkward phrasing, grammatical errors, and inconsistent language usage.
There are some suggestions that the translator can improve on. So the first one is to proofread the translated text more thoroughly, because from what we observe, there are some minor inconsistency that might have changed the essence and the message that the author is trying to convey. Okay, so the second suggestion is to adapt more localization to make the translation more relatable. For instance, instead of using USD, the translator could perhaps change it to Ringgit Malaysia to make it more familiar. Moving on to the quality of the translation, I believe that the translator has done justice to the original author. The translator has actually managed to capture the essence and the intended message of the book. Although there are times where the tone and the style diverges from the original author, and as well as there are quite a lot of sentences that are deleted completely instead of using equivalents. Secondly, in terms of the cultural appropriateness, the translator has done well in adapting the source text into ones that is more culturally appropriate and that is more aligned with the target language.